Lily had always dreamed of a life full of love and happiness. But she never imagined that the person she thought she loved would be the one who would make her feel so trapped. She was 26 years old, and while many of her friends were building their careers or settling into healthy relationships, she felt stuck in a cycle that seemed impossible to escape. Her life had never been perfect. Growing up, Lily had dealt with her fair share of challenges. Her father was distant and often angry, while her mother was quiet and emotionally unavailable. There had been a lack of affection in their household, and as Lily grew older, she longed for something more, something that would fill the emptiness she felt. She wanted to feel seen, heard, and valued in a way that she had never experienced at home. Then David came into her life. He was charming, confident, and showered her with attention. He made her feel special, something she had always craved. At first, everything seemed perfect. He listened when she spoke, made her laugh, and made her feel like she mattered. He promised her the world, and for a while, she believed him. For the first time, she felt seen and cared for. But as time went on, things started to change. David's love began to feel more like control. He wasn't as interested in her friends anymore, and he didn't like when she spent too much time with her family. He wanted her all to himself. Lily thought this was just his way of showing how much he cared, but slowly, she began to realize that this wasn't love at all. It was something much darker. He started to make small, subtle comments about her appearance, her clothes, and even her behavior. At first, they seemed like harmless jokes, but soon they became more pointed and harsh. When Lily picked out an outfit, David would tell her it was too revealing, or too plain, or just not right for the occasion. She felt confused, unsure of herself. Her confidence, once solid, began to erode. She started to second-guess her choices, wondering if he was right. The first time David got upset over something small, Lily brushed it off. It was just a disagreement, after all. Everyone had arguments in relationships, right? But soon, those disagreements became more frequent, and the anger that followed began to feel more intense. He would yell at her for the smallest mistakes, things that wouldn't have bothered anyone else. She learned to walk on eggshells, never knowing when something she said or did might set him off. And yet, after each argument, David would apologize. He would tell her how much he loved her, how much he needed her, and how sorry he was for losing his temper. Lily wanted to believe him. She wanted to think that the man she fell in love with was still there beneath all the anger. And for a while, she did. But with each apology came a promise that things would change. And each time, the promises were broken. David would beg for forgiveness, and Lily, despite her growing doubts, would take him back. She couldn't help it. She loved him, or at least, she thought she did. Or maybe she was just afraid of being alone. David had become the center of her world, and without him, she didn't know who she was anymore. Things reached a boiling point one night after a particularly harsh argument. Lily had tried to leave, to walk away from the situation and clear her head. But David wouldn't let her. He grabbed her arm tightly, his grip firm and unyielding. "You're not going anywhere," he said, his voice cold. Lily's heart pounded in her chest. She had never seen him like this before. It was as if he was a stranger. She wanted to scream, to fight back, but the fear in her chest was too strong. "Please, David," she begged, her voice trembling. "Just let me go. I need to breathe. I need some space." Her eyes were filled with tears, and she could barely make out the words she was trying to say. But David was relentless. He pulled her closer, his face inches from hers. "You don't need space," he growled. "What you need is to realize that you belong with me. You're mine, Lily." The words were like a slap to her face, but she couldn't pull away. In that moment, Lily felt the weight of everything that had happened in their relationship. All the promises, the lies, the broken words. She couldn't breathe. She wanted to scream, but all that came out was a strangled whisper. "Please, don't take me back there," she begged, her voice shaking with fear. "Don't make me go back to that place." But David didn't let her go. Instead, his lips crashed against hers, silencing her fears. The kiss was hard, forceful, and it left Lily breathless. It was not a kiss of love, but of power, a way to shut her down, to control her. As he kissed her, Lily stood there frozen, feeling her heart race in her chest. She felt as if she were drowning, torn between the man she once loved and the man he had become. For a brief moment, she felt herself giving in, as if the kiss was a way to make everything better, to erase the pain. But deep down, she knew it wasn't. She knew this wasn't love. It was control. It was manipulation. When the kiss finally ended, David stepped back, smiling as if he had just won some sort of victory. He looked at her as though nothing had happened. "See? Everything's fine now," he said, as if the kiss had somehow fixed everything. Lily stood there, her heart pounding in her chest, feeling more lost than ever. She wanted to speak, to tell him how she felt, to tell him the truth. But the words wouldn't come. All she could think about was how far she had fallen, how much she had lost in this relationship. She had been silenced, not just by the kiss, but by her own fear. For a moment, she thought about leaving again, about running away from this nightmare that had become her life. But what if he came after her? What if he hurt her? Her mind raced with 1,000 questions, but no answers came. She was stuck, caught between her love for him and the fear that was slowly consuming her. Lily had no idea what the future held. All she knew was that she couldn't keep living like this. But was she strong enough to break free? The next morning, Lily woke up with a sense of heaviness. She lay there, staring at the ceiling, her mind replaying everything that had happened the night before. David's kiss had left her with a strange feeling. Part of her wanted to believe it meant something. But deep down, she knew it didn't. It wasn't love. It was something else. Something that made her feel small, afraid, and unsure of herself. As she sat up in bed, her hands shaking slightly, she couldn't help but wonder how much longer she could keep pretending everything was okay. She had always tried to convince herself that things would get better, that the good moments would outweigh the bad. But now, she saw the truth that David was not the person she thought he was, and she had been blind to it for far too long. Lily had always been strong, or at least she had been before she met David. She had her own dreams, her own ambitions, and a life that was hers to live. But now, it seemed like all of that had been slowly erased. She had become someone she didn't recognize, constantly second-guessing herself and walking on eggshells around him. Every day felt like a struggle to hold on to any part of herself that was still left. The more Lily thought about the way things had been, the more she realized how deeply she had changed. She wasn't the person she used to be. She wasn't the carefree woman who laughed easily and dreamed big. That woman had been swallowed up by David's control and manipulation. The weight of it all settled heavily on her chest, but then something inside her stirred a flicker of hope, a spark of realization that maybe she could change things. Maybe she didn't have to live like this anymore. Maybe, just maybe, she could find a way out. She took a deep breath and picked up her phone. Her hands trembled as she scrolled through her contacts, finally landing on Ella's name. Ella was her childhood friend, someone who had always been there for her, even when they had grown distant over the years. Lily hadn't reached out to her in months. She hadn't wanted to admit to anyone what was really happening in her life, afraid of judgment, or worse, of being told to leave David. But now, she needed help. She needed someone who could remind her of who she was before all of this began. Ella answered the phone on the second ring, her voice warm and welcoming. "Lily, it's so good to hear from you. How have you been?" Lily's heart pounded in her chest, but hearing Ella's voice brought a sense of comfort. "Hey, Ella, I need to talk to you about something. Can we meet up?" There was a pause, and then Ella's voice softened. "Of course, Lily. I'm here for you. Let's meet. I'll be there in an hour." As Lily hung up the phone, she felt a wave of relief wash over her. She hadn't realized how badly she needed someone who understood her, someone who could see her for who she truly was. She wasn't sure what she would say to Ella, but she knew that meeting with her was the first step in regaining control of her life. An hour later, Lily sat across from Ella at a small cafe, sipping on a cup of tea. The place was quiet, and the soft hum of conversation filled the air. Ella looked at her with concern, her eyes searching Lily's face as if trying to read her. "What's been going on, Lily?" Ella asked gently. "You seem so distant lately. Is everything okay?" Lily took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her emotions in her chest. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to speak the truth. "Ella, things with David have gotten really bad. I don't know how it happened, but I feel like I've lost myself. He's been controlling me, making me feel like I'm not enough. And I don't know how to get out of it." Ella's eyes softened, and she reached across the table to take Lily's hand. "Lily, I'm so sorry you've been going through this. You deserve so much better. You're strong, and you can get out of this. You just need to believe in yourself again." The words hit Lily like a wave of relief. For the first time in months, someone had reminded her of her worth. She wasn't the weak person David had made her feel like. She was strong, capable, and worthy of a life where she felt free, respected, and loved for who she truly was. Over the next few days, Lily began to take small steps toward reclaiming her independence. She started attending therapy, something she had always been hesitant about. She had always been proud and had never wanted to admit that she needed help. But now, she realized that seeking help wasn't a sign of weakness, it was a step toward healing. The therapist helped her understand the emotional abuse she had endured, and together, they worked on strategies to build her self-esteem and confidence. In therapy, Lily learned that emotional abuse doesn't always show up in obvious ways. It wasn't about physical violence, it was about control, manipulation, and emotional manipulation. David had made her doubt herself at every turn, convincing her that she couldn't make decisions without him. He had isolated her from her friends and family, slowly breaking her down until she no longer recognized who she was. But now, Lily was beginning to see that she didn't have to live like that anymore. One afternoon, she found herself sitting across from David once again. He had asked her to meet him, and part of her still felt the pull to go back to him, to believe his empty promises. But this time, something was different. She wasn't the same person who had been swept up in his charm and manipulation. She had changed, and she was stronger than she had ever been before. "I can't do this anymore, David," Lily said, her voice steady. "I can't keep living in this cycle. I need to be free. I need to find myself again." David's expression faltered, and for the first time, Lily saw a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. He didn't know how to respond. His power over her had always been in his ability to make her doubt herself, to make her feel like she was nothing without him. But now, Lily saw through it. "I'm leaving, David," she said, standing up. "I'm not coming back. I'm done." The words hung in the air, and Lily felt a rush of relief wash over her. As she walked away, she knew that the hardest part was still ahead. But she also knew that she was no longer afraid. She was walking away from the past, from the person she had been, and stepping into a future where she would find herself again. Over the following weeks, Lily worked hard to rebuild her life. She reconnected with old friends, started focusing on her career again, and spent time doing the things she loved. Slowly, she began to rediscover who she was before David came into her life. And though the road to healing wasn't always easy, Lily knew she was on the right path. One evening, as she sat on the balcony of her apartment, watching the sunset, she realized that she was finally free. She had broken the chains that had held her captive for so long. And as the sky turned dark, she smiled to herself, knowing that no matter what came next, she was strong enough to face it. She had found her way back to herself, and that was all she needed.